welcome to At Ease with Cooking. I'm Bonnie Kerschke, your host. And this evening we're cooking with Ernst Conrad, executive chef of the Joliet restaurant at the Vista Marquette Hotel in downtown Minneapolis. Ernst will be preparing 3 Austrian recipes for us this evening, and he's going to begin with an appetizer called wild mushroom strudel with chive butter sauce. Welcome, Ernst.
Good evening.
That recipe sounds absolutely marvelous. What are we going to put in that strudel?
As you can see, I brought the mushrooms with me, and those here are called shiitake mushrooms. Those are oyster mushrooms and regular mushrooms. Anybody at home would have the option to use any kind. If you want to use only shiitake or only regular mushrooms or even the morels or whatever anybody desires, he could use.
Sometimes it's a matter of what's available to us, right?
Also, the shiitake is already available in most supermarkets here. So actually, what we're going to do is we have to slice those mushrooms, and we saute them afterwards, and that will be filled in a phyllo dough crust.
Great.
So that's why I call it strudel. Strudel is a very common dish, I believe, mostly known as the apple strudel.
Right.
And
wonderful dessert, that is.
Yep, and not everybody really is familiar that we in Austria, we do a lot of other type of strudels, like appetizer strudels, we do even main course strudels. We make meat strudels, we fill strudels with everything that comes along in the kitchen, you know.
They're wonderful.
So anyway, we're starting now with slicing them up quickly here. The recipe I brought, I'm not going to use while I do it, I just chop, chop, chop.
Yes. We need a little bit more instruction at home.
All right. And then a couple of regular ones.
Do you do much in the way of cleaning the mushrooms?
Yeah, I wipe them off before. I don't wash them.
You don't wash them?
No, I don't wash them. I wipe them off with a cloth because if you wash them, you take a lot of the flavor away, especially from those wild ones.
It acts kind of like a sponge too, and kind of absorbs a
well,
lot
if you
of that
do,
water.
if you wash them, the thing is you should wash them just in the last minute before you really start using them.
Right.
Because if you wash them, they're wet, and then they soak for a while, and then they get mushy.
Oh.
So anyway, what I brought here is just some clarified butter, or melted butter, and then I have chopped shallots here already, which we saute a little bit, touch of chopped garlic. Okay, and we put all those mushrooms right in here.
Oh, that's going to be absolutely marvelous.
It's a very easy dish to do, and you can season it to anybody's liking. I mean, I'm using fresh herbs. I brought some fresh thyme with me. We just
and we're lucky now. We can get those in some of the supermarkets.
Yes, I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it at Bayerly's, I believe. And what are the other one? What's the other?
A lunch.
Lunch. Even cup food.
Right.
That's where my wife shops.
Oh. Do you do most of the cooking at home, or does?
No, not very much.
Not very much.
Especially not since I live here in Minneapolis. Since I'm in Minneapolis, really, I discovered barbecue, you know.
Oh, yes.
And so in the summertime, if I have a chance, I do I think just like anybody else around here.
Regular barbecue.
Yeah, throw on the charcoal grill on the deck.
That's good too, isn't it?
Cook some steaks or fish or whatever.
You have worked in restaurants all over the world too, haven't you?
Yeah, I worked, actually the company I'm working with is Hilton International. We're called Vista here in the States. And they have brought me around a little, yes. I started out in West Berlin, since I did my apprenticeship and everything in Austria. And my first job with Hilton International was in West Berlin, at the West Berlin Hilton. And then it just became a little pepper here.
That is a wonderful pepper mill.
And salt. And that's really all there is.
Now you put some fresh rosemary in there too.
Yeah,
and
this is the fresh rosemary.
And then you had some fresh chives
and chives. And the rest of the chive we use then for the sauce.
For the sauce.
Okay. This you just briefly saute. The skillet should be hot. before you really start sautéing it. Otherwise, if the skillet is not hot and you start with a cool skillet, the mushrooms will leave a lot more water.
Oh,
or the
yes.
water will come out, and you're gonna have a soup here instead of just plain mushrooms.
Now, what would we do if that were to happen to us? Just
All
cook
it-
it longer till that
Yeah,
evaporated off?
but then everything changes. The flavor of the mushroom
Okay.
changes. Everything changes. So
Have
the
it hot.
secret of anytime you talk about sautéing, the secret is always start with a hot skillet.
Hot
That's
skillet.
all it is.
Okay.
Okay, we put that on the side now, just to cool it off a little.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So while that cools off, we should do the chive butter sauce, I believe.
Okay.
So there again, a little bit butter. That's also a very easy sauce to make. Chopped shallots. They should not get brown.
All right.
The shallots should just get the consistency. They should be glazy. And then the fresh chives.
I can't believe how wonderful this smells here. That
Yeah,
fresh,
and all it is
that
is
fresh
just-
thyme and that rosemary.
That's it. All that you smell is now really the mushrooms and a couple of pieces of herbs here, and you really don't have to be a genius to.
No, but
It's very easy.
very impressive.
So anyway, the shallots, you saute the shallots slightly. They should not get brown, as I said, and then you deglaze it with a little white wine. Okay. See?
Now, does it matter what kind of white wine you
Well,
use?
preferably you should use a dry white wine.
dry white wine.
But if you know, there's people they do not like to use any type of alcohol for cooking, so you don't use wine. You can use chicken stock or broth, or turkey broth or whatever you have. I believe my wife at home would use Campbell's chicken stock or something like that. So you see, and then when the white wine has to reduce, so it has almost to evaporate. That takes a couple of seconds, and then we only put the chives in, because again, the chives also we don't want to cook too much, because then it loses the color.
The color, yes.
So we want to keep it nice
Keep
and
that
green.
nice green
See,
color.
that's it. Now we go off the stove.
Okay.
It's not too hot, and we just whip in some fresh butter.
Oh,
Very healthy,
yes.
very healthy sauce. But very light though. If you compare, you think you might have a very heavy and rich sauce here because it's butter, right?
Right.
Yes, it is a heavy butter on one side. But on the other hand, if you compare it with the old-fashioned gravies you used to cook,
Yes.
so there's not much of a difference. So those ones actually are lighter.
And we're not going, as for an appetizer, we
No,
won't
we
be
do
using much
use a
of
little
that.
bit. So you see, that's it.
Right.
You cannot bring that sauce to a boil no more. If you bring that sauce to a boil, it will break. So that means the butter will separate from the.
And then we've got to start all over again.
Yep. So yeah, again, a little bit pepper and salt. And that's all it takes. And this is beautiful chive sauce. So we put that on the side for now,
Okay.
and we stuff our strudel and bake it. And that's the secret of this recipe. Phyllo dough I use instead of real strudel dough.
Yes, that would
The
be.
real phyllo dough is also available here in every supermarket or so.
Right.
Usually in the frozen section.
Yes.
And why do I use it? Because I believe it's very, very similar. It's as close as you can get to real strudel dough. And
Without all that work.
without all that mess and without all that flour all over the kitchen at home. If you make a real strudel dough, you have to pull the strudel dough all over a table. Very
Yes.
thin. It's a pulled dough actually. So let me try to sneak this over here. So what we do is here, what we have to do here now is we have to do 3 layers. You see,
Three
they're very
layers.
thin.
Yes, and they will dry out quickly
Yes,
with
you
our
have to work
hot
fast with
lights.
those things. So here we have 1 layer, and we brush it slightly with this liquid butter. What that now does is it makes it very crispy, and you will have 3 layers of dough around the
Yes.
mushroom filling. Okay, that's why the butter. That's the only reason really for the butter. So
Make it
so
nice and-
we get a couple of layers. Oops. I have to. All right.
More little butter in there.
And that's it. And then we do the stuffing. You put those mushroom stuffings right on here on one end. You don't want to spread it out. You put it on one end.
One end. All right.
So that
And we
means
put it on the long side.
yes. So we get a long strudel, and then we can cut it in 4 pieces, and we have right here, we have right away about 2 portions of appetizers. Okay, you roll it over. We try to roll it tight as possible. Okay, you squeeze it in the ends. Now here we have a little empty part. We can cut that off. If I find my knife again.
There it is.
Okay. And then you put it on a little sheet pan or cookie pan, and bake it in the oven.
Do we have to butter on the top of
This, yes, the whole thing has to be now thoroughly brushed with clarified butter.
Now, if we're going to make clarified butter, how would
Clarified
we
butter
go
is
about
actually
that?
you put a half a pound of butter, or yeah, I would start with a half a pound at least in a small pot and put it on the stove, let it melt down and then boil for a while. Then you pull it aside, and all that what do you call it?
That
The milk-
milky, like-
the milk is that will set on the bottom.
And so we want to use just the butter that's on
You
the
will
top,
just
not...
yes, especially for cooking and for brushing pastries. You want to use only the clarified.
Okay,
Okay,
now, while
so
that
this has
is
to
cooking,
Yeah, this has to bake now for about 10 minutes
All
on
right.
375. It will be nice golden brown, and then we serve it.
and for our entree, you're going to begin that while our strudel is cooking, and what are you going to prepare for that?
Well, I brought a rainbow trout. I want to do a rainbow trout meunier, which is a real traditional Austrian dish. It's almost as popular as you have your walleye here.
Oh, okay. These trout look wonderful, Ernst. How are we going to prepare those?
Okay, first of all, they have to be fresh trouts, and then we cut them open. I cut them open at the belly side and took the backbone out already, and then we season them like little salt. Very, very, very simple recipe again, but I believe that it could be a little competition for the famous walleye.
Oh, all right.
I mean, we in Austria, we eat trout, rainbow trout, meunier, the way we are going to prepare today, you find almost in every little family type restaurant, fancy restaurant, everywhere.
Ooh.
Just like walleye here. Everywhere I go, I see walleye on
Right.
the menu. So anyway, a little garlic in here, salt, pepper, little garlic, and a little lemon juice, just a little. Okay, and an optional, that's actually optional, Worcestershire. We put a little bit in, we just wrap a couple of drops of it in here.
Ah,
Okay,
can add just a little bit of flavor.
just a little. Maybe a little chopped parsley, you see? Like this. Then you close it up. Then we close it back up. Then we dip it in we just dipped it on both sides in flour. Okay. All right. And then we start cooking it in a skillet here with oil.
Now, what kind
Yes.
of oil do you use there?
Any regular vegetable oil. If you-
Vegetable, okay.
Some people prefer to cook with olive oil nowadays. You can cook with olive oil, but it's not really necessary. Regular oil, you have to remember why I say oil is, because if you start cooking maybe with butter or fresh butter gets brown and burns much faster than oil.
Then the oil would. And there again, we wanted to have a nice hot skillet.
You want to have a hot skillet so we get the trout brown on the outside a little bit, so the skin becomes crisp. Okay?
Okay.
And what we do then is we just brown it now quickly on both sides, and then we transfer it in a little roasting pan or casserole and finish it off in the oven. It shouldn't take longer than 5-7 minutes, not really more.
Oh, yes.
Because there are no more bones in it, it's just thin, very thin fish.
We want to be sure it isn't overcooked.
That's all. Okay, turn it over. See, slightly browned on that side.
How long would you say it would take in the in your saute pan here?
In the
for?
saute pan, maybe if you cover it up and then you have to go on very low heat and put a cover on, you can do it also in about 10 minutes.
In about 10 minutes. So if you didn't want to put it in the oven, you
Yeah.
could do it that
The
way.
most simplest way is if you have a skillet like that which goes in your home, goes from the stove right into the skillet. into the oven.
Right into the oven.
Yeah.
Just be sure that your handle is one that can
Yeah.
can take the temperature
Well,
of the
if you
oven.
have a plastic handle, you should,
Yeah,
you should,
right.
You should not put that in the oven. But here, tonight, we have to put it in the pan because that skillet won't fit in your
Yes,
convection oven.
Yeah.
Is it convection oven?
No, it isn't,
Oops.
but it's
See?
just a small one that we use here.
I just killed the head of that one.
Well, that's all right. I'm sure there's some people who would rather have it off anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I have heard those comments already. People don't like to see the fish head. Okay, so we put that
A little
that
bit of
oil
that
over
oil
here.
over there.
And that skillet we save here on the side for now because we will do afterwards the Meunier butter, which is a butter with lemon juice and so forth.
And then that we'll put on top
Yeah.
of there.
We put the trout in the oven now, and it shouldn't take more than 7 minutes in here to be done.
Okay, now while that's cooking, you're going to prepare a dessert for us, which
Yeah,
is
which is a real Austrian cookie actually. It's called vanilla Kipfel.
Okay.
It's also very known. Most housewives do it, and it's just again very well known, just like the chocolate chip cookie here, really almost. And it's a half moon shaped cookie.
great. Ernst, what are the ingredients for our cookie here this
Okay,
evening?
Bonnie, what I do have here is the flour. We just have to mix that quickly by hand, actually. And the main ingredients on that whole cookie is the vanilla sugar.
Vanilla sugar.
Vanilla sugar, which is, I don't know where it is available in the Twin Cities. I believe you
Yes,
have
yes.
found out.
When we give the address for the recipes and if they send for them, we'll tell them where they can get vanilla sugar.
So the way you have to start then this cookie is if you have all your ingredients together, you add the flour, the vanilla sugar, okay, and then the regular sugar. Right. And what you do is you just mix that with your hands.
All
Usually
right.
the best way to do it.
Yes.
Best tools at home are hands anyway. Right? And then you work in the butter. And what you're supposed to do is you have to be careful that you don't knead it too much. Because if you overwork that dough, the butter will separate from the flour,
From
and
the
then
flour.
you're going to get a hard cookie.
Oh, okay.
So you try to work that very, see, just squeeze the flour through the butter. Feels good when it comes through your fingers.
Yes. That's really the best way to do it too.
You can do it in a mixer, but it's very tricky because in a mixer it goes then too fast, and if you overmix it just for a little bit, the dough will not be right. So you see, we don't even have a smooth dough right now. It's still all crumbs and thing. But I don't work it no more because now I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients.
All right.
Because I do not want to get that already done to a smooth dough and then add the nuts and then add the sugar, because then I have to work it again.
Right.
So now I put those are chopped almonds.
Those are really very fine, aren't they?
Yes. And then we need 2 egg yolks. I think I cracked it bestly here, right, Liz? Just the yolk.
And just the yolk.
Just the yolk of 2 eggs. Okay.
It'd be a nice, rich cookie.
Okay. And now we try to work that. Now we have to see that we get that to a smooth dough ball.
Okay.
Okay.
Now it's not very difficult.
No, it's also,
Probably the hardest thing is just you just don't overwork
yes. You don't, if you work it too much, like I said before, then it separates and it becomes very. Actually, then you can see it when it happens. You can see it because it becomes very greasy.
it. Oh, all right.
And then you don't have to waste your time no more of baking it. You just
You might as well get rid of it.
If you see that dough looking at you with grease all over it, don't bother. Don't even form it into cookies. Just
It's a total loss.
waste. Give it to the
Okay.
birds. In the wintertime, you can hang it out your balcony maybe.
Okay, so that's the most
Okay.
important thing. Don't overwork it.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you move this over here so we can see it here. And then what you usually do is you roll it a little. You see, you form it into a roll. Okay. And then the best way would be actually that you refrigerate it. You wrap that in plastic.
Oh,
In
yes.
plastic and refrigerate it for about an hour.
About an hour.
Yeah.
And that's all it'll take.
That's it. That's it. And then you take it out, which we have no time now to put that in the refrigerator for an hour. Then you cut it in pieces. And you can make it to whatever size you might like to have your cookie. Maybe you want a big cookie, you make it larger.
Right,
You want a small cookie, you make them smaller. So you roll that thing to a little ball first, and then you go in the demo. So you test it. Okay. You roll it like that. You make it narrow in the end. Actually, it has a crescent shape, like a croissant.
Oh, okay.
then
That's a good way
Like
to...
this.
Oh,
And like this, it goes then right on our cookie sheet pan here. See?
mm-hmm.
I make one more, and then the next one you make.
Oh, you're going to test me here, huh?
No, no testing. Look at I'm dirty. I want to get you a little greased up too.
Okay.